to. Well, no, he's picking up on part 6 of Artville, somewhere in time.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world's time zones, each and every one covered like a blanket by this program, Coast to Coast AM, the largest program of its type in the world. I'm Art Bell, and it's great to be here, an honor and a privilege to be escorting you through the weekend. The webcam photograph tonight, one that I shot a couple of hours ago, and that's our little sweetheart Dolly, with my little sweetheart trying to eat her hair. So it's Sunday, going into Monday, and not good news in California. A gasoline tanker crashed and burst into flames, burned the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge on Sunday, and it created so much heat that a whole stretch of the highway virtually melted and collapsed. Officials predicted a traffic nightmare for Bay Area commuters for weeks or months to come. Flames were 200 feet in the air. But get this, the truck's driver walked away from the scene with second-degree burns. No other injuries reported. It occurred at 3:45 in the morning. Officials said it could have been much deadlier had it occurred at a busier time. A man driving a dead woman's car shot a police officer, then opened fire in a parking lot in a mall Sunday, according to authorities. By the end of the day, 4 people, including that gunman, dead. The chaos ended when police shot the gunman to death outside a Target store inside Ward Parkway Center in South Kansas City. And again, just in case you were curious, many of us have said, these kinds of mass shootings are on the increase. In fact, statistically, since the 1960s, they certainly are on the increase. Iran Sunday to join the U.S. and other countries at a conference on Iraq this week, raising some hopes the government in Tehran would help stabilize its violent neighbor and stem the flow of guns and bombs over the border. In an apparent effort to drive home that point, the Prime Minister told an Iranian envoy that the persistent violence in Iraq, some of it carried out by the Shiite militias Iran is accused of arming, could spill over into neighboring countries, including those that are supposed to support the Iraq government. Now, the backlash has built up even before the first official release of former CIA Director George Kennett's memoir, with criticism about his version of the run-up to the Iraq War. Interrogation techniques and other events questioned. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice on Sunday disputed Kennett's claim that the Bush administration, before the U.S.-led invasion in March of 2003, never had a serious debate about whether Iraq posed an imminent threat or whether to tighten existing sanctions. Prime Minister Olmert is going to face criticism in Jerusalem when a government commission releases its first findings Monday on last year's inconclusive war in Lebanon. Raising pressure on the Israeli leader to step down, leaked sections of findings prompted a new round of resignation calls Sunday from both the opposition and members of Olmert's governing coalition. Al Gore condemned Canada's new plan to reduce greenhouse gases. He says it is, quote, a complete and total fraud because it lacks any specific, gives industry a way to actually increase emissions. Under the initiative announced Thursday, Canada actually aims to reduce the current level of greenhouse gas emissions 20% by 2020. But the government acknowledged it would not meet its obligations under the Kyoto Protocol, which requires 35 industrialized countries to cut greenhouse gas emissions by just 5% below 1990 levels by 2012. I'm still extremely excited about yesterday's announcement, the one I read yesterday, I guess I have to say, of the new planet that has been found, the Earth-like planet, a mere 20.5 light years from our very own Earth. All right, all that said, in a moment, we'll be back with some of the rest of the news. We have now lost tens of billions of bees, according to an estimate by the Bee Inspectors of America, a national group that tracks beekeeping. So far, no one can say what's causing the bees to become disoriented and fail to return to their hives. We had a video yesterday of some of them just flopping around on a parking lot. It was pretty hard to watch, actually. As with any great mystery, a number of theories, of course, have been posed. Many seem to researchers to be more science fiction than science. People have blamed genetically modified crops, cell phone towers, high voltage transmission lines, and lots more. Or even a secret plot by Russia. Some of bin Laden and such bring down American agriculture. Or, as some blogs have asserted, the rapture of bees in which God has recalled them to heaven. Actually, I think that was suggested on this program. The volume of theories is totally mind-boggling, according to Diana Fox Foster, a scientist at Pennsylvania State University with Jeffrey S. Pettis, and another scientist from the United States Department of Agriculture. Dr. Fox Foster is leading a team of researchers who are trying to find answers to explain colony collapse disorder, the name given for the disappearing bee syndrome. Clearly, there's an urgency to solve this, Dr. Fox Foster said. We're trying to move as quickly as we can. Dr. Fox Foster and fellow scientists who were at a two-day meeting to discuss early findings and future plans with government officials have been focusing on the two most likely suspects, a virus, a fungus, or a pesticide. About 60 researchers from North America sifted the possibilities in a meeting today. Now, this is interesting. Genetic testing at Columbia University has apparently revealed the presence of multiple microorganisms in bees from hives or colonies that are in decline, suggesting that something is weakening their immune system. In fact, the researchers have actually found some fungi in the affected bees that, get this, are also found in humans whose immune systems have been suppressed by AIDS or cancer. That, says Dr. Fox Foster, is extremely unusual. Meanwhile, samples were sent to an agricultural department lab in North Carolina this month to screen for 117 chemicals. Particular suspicion falling on a pesticide that France banned out of concern that it may have been decimating bee colonies. Concern is also mounting among public officials. There are so many of our crops that require pollination that Dennis Cardoza, a California Democrat whose district includes the state's central agricultural valley, and who also presided last month at a congressional hearing on the issue, quote, we need an urgent call to arms to try and ascertain what's really going on with bees and bring as much science as we can possibly bring to bear on the problem. Thus far, colony collapse disorder has now been found in 27 states, according to Bee Alert Inc. That's a company monitoring the problem. A recent survey of 13 states showed that 26% of beekeepers had lost at least half their bee colonies between September and March. And of course, you all well know by now the quote from Einstein that when the bees go, humans have 4 years and no more. Stark warnings over the damaging effects of impending climate change were underlined just this last Friday in the 4th assessment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Control Change. Warming of the climate system is unequivocal, as is now evident from observations of increases in global average air and ocean temperatures, widespread melting of snow and ice, and rising global mean sea levels, according to the report Climate Change 2007, the physical science basis. The paper reiterates the body's earlier conclusion that climate change is a consequence of rising atmospheric concentrations of human-made greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Global atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases have increased markedly as a result of human activities since 1750 and now far exceed pre-industrial levels. The global increase in carbon dioxide concentrations are primarily due to fossil fuel use and land use change, while those of methane and nitrous oxide are primarily due to agriculture. You may have heard a very rare earthquake shook households in southeast England on Saturday. It toppled chimneys, caused power cuts, and alarmed residents. The tremor, which the British Geological Survey, BGS, said hit 4.3 on the Richter scale, not much, but if you're in England where the ground is rock solid, it's a lot. Struck just after 8:15 a.m., but left one woman suffering a minor head and neck injury, which did require her going to the hospital. A pilot has reported seeing 2 UFOs near the island of Guernsey in the UK. The BBC describes them as bright yellow, flat disc shapes, at least twice the size of a Boeing 737. Besides being seen by pilot Ray Boyer, the UFOs were also seen by the plane's passengers and by other nearby planes. BBC quotes British UFO researcher John Spencer saying, quote, "These types of sightings have been reported by pilots, generally accepted to be reliable and sensible observers since the 1940s, and they have excited attention to this very day. Such light effects are often popularly thought to represent alien visitors, but many UFO researchers they believe they more likely represent natural atmospheric phenomena not yet fully understood by science. However, a similar encounter in 1978 over the Bass Straits in Australia, where the pilot was in radio contact with the ground throughout, resulted in the pilot never being heard from again. So these phenomena remain important to be studied. And by the way, guess who has seen a UFO? Actually, several. That would be Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones. Luckman said Mick Jagger has been very involved with the subject of UFOs now for years. I didn't know that. In 1968, he went camping in Glastonbury when his then girlfriend, singer Marianne Faithfull, remember her? And encountered both of them, I guess, a rare, luminous, cigar-shaped mothership. Around the same time, Mick had a UFO detector installed at his British estate. Isn't that interesting? Then it kept going off whenever he left home, indicating the presence of strong electromagnetic activity in the immediate area. The now 63-year-old singer also sighted a UFO over the crowd during Rolling Stones' infamous 1969 Altamont concert in California. Mick is not the only member of that band to believe in aliens. The guitarist, Keith Richards, also admitted to, in quotes, seeing a few. Now, this is kind of interesting, and I thought I would relate it to you and see how you took it. Dr. Laura Schlesinger, you may know her, very popular radio personality who dispenses advice to people who call in on her radio show. Recently, she said that as an observant Orthodox Jew, homosexuality is an abomination according to Leviticus 18:22 and cannot be condoned under any circumstance. The following purports to be an open letter to Dr. Laura penned by an East Coast resident, which was posted on the internet some time ago. And I think it's a riot. Dear Dr. Laura, thank you for doing so much to educate people regarding God's law. I've learned a great deal from your show, and I try to share the knowledge with as many people as I can. When someone tries to defend the homosexual lifestyle, for example, I simply remind them that Leviticus 18:22 clearly states it to be an abomination. End of debate. I do need some advice from you, however, regarding some of the other specific laws and how to follow them. When I burn a bull on the altar as a sacrifice, I know it creates a pleasing odor for the Lord, as in Leviticus 1:9. The problem is my neighbors. They claim the odor is not pleasing to them. Should I smite them? I would like to sell my daughter into slavery, as sanctioned in Exodus 21:7. In this day and age, what do you think would be a fair price for her? I know that I am allowed no contact with a woman while she is in her period of menstrual uncleanliness. Leviticus 15:19-24. The problem is, how do I tell? I've tried asking, but most women take offense. Leviticus 25:44 states, I may indeed possess slaves, both male and female, provided that they are purchased from neighboring nations. A friend of mine claims this applies to Mexico, but not Canadians. Can you clarify, why can I not own a Canadian? I have a neighbor who insists on working on the Sabbath. Exodus 35:2 clearly states that he should be put to death. Am I morally obligated to kill him myself? A friend of mine feels that even though eating shellfish is an abomination, Leviticus 11:10, it is a lesser abomination than homosexuality. I don't agree. Can you settle this, please? Leviticus 21:20 states, I may not approach the altar of God if I have a defect in my sight. I have to admit, I wear reading glasses. Does my vision have to be 20/20, or is there a bit of wiggle room here? Most of my male friends get their hair trimmed, including the hair around their temples, even though this is expressly forbidden by Leviticus 19:27. How should they die? Now, I know Leviticus 11:6-8 that touching the skin of a dead pig makes me unclean, but may I still play football if I wear gloves? My uncle has a farm. He violates Leviticus 19:19 by planting 2 different crops in the same field, as does his wife, by wearing garments made of 2 different kinds of thread, specifically cotton polyester blends. He also tends to curse and blaspheme a lot. Is it really necessary that we go to all the trouble of getting the whole town together to stone them? Leviticus 24:10-16. Couldn't we just burn them to death at a private family affair like we do with people who sleep with their in-laws? Leviticus 20:14. I know you've studied these things extensively, so I'm confident you can help. Thanks again for reminding us that God's word is eternal and unchanging. And the Moshi. So, there you have it. The Bible was quite specific, wasn't it? All right, we're going to take some calls. Talk to some of you. Unscreened, open line calls. Rules are, have something interesting to say. Say it directly and distinctly if possible. But above all, when I answer and say you're on the air, by all means, turn your radio off. West of the Rockies, 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 800-825-5033. First-time callers, area code 818-501-4721. Wildcard line, folk. Area code 818-501-4109, 4109. And if you're outside the country, no problem. Toll free it is at 800-893-0903. Let's do it. West of the Rockies, you are on the air.
How are you doing this evening, Art?
Very well, sir.
All right. I'd like to respond a little bit to the statement that you made about Leviticus to the individual. It was interesting writing. Let him know, that a lot of things in the Bible are now manifesting themselves today, and I'd rather be on the side of good versus jokes. But the real reason why I'm calling is that, have you heard of this worldwide movement for justice that is sweeping the planet right now? I found some information on Google and YouTube, and if you get a chance, go to it, and your listeners go to it, because something is in the works, and it's absolutely fantastic, and I think it's going
Wait. With regard, justice with regard to what?
All right, when I saw this particular piece, it had to do with General Electric and NBC, and it had to do with the 78 million baby boomers and everybody else on the planet in terms of boycotting both companies.
Why?
In terms of this organization that had presented some projects to NBC, and they were basically ripped off. And this particular worldwide movement of justice.
Wait. It's important that we understand. Some organization unnamed presented some projects unnamed to NBC that rejected them. I don't understand.
Oh no, it was more than that. It seemed that NBC had initiated, from what this particular gentleman was saying on the tape, malpractice, fraud, attempted theft and racism and general.
All right. Well, listen. That's reaching a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm not going to continue with that because I have no idea what this gentleman is talking about, and he's making very specific allegations of the sort that I simply can't confirm right now. So I'll see what I can do. I'll take a look. A worldwide push for justice of some kind because of something unnamed. Anyway, I'll take a look and see what we can find. All right, unscreened open line calls. Anything you want to talk about is fair game. And we'll come back and begin to pick more of you from the lineup in a moment. Coming up next hour, Ryan Wood. Ryan will talk about things like why saucers crash. He'll talk about the Majestic documents. He's an expert on that, whether they're real or fake. And I'm really interested in why saucers crash. He's a crash retrieval kind of guy. He will talk about several specific crashes, so that you have to look forward to. Coming up next, more of all of you. All right, as promised, here we go. Wildcard line, you are on the air.
Oh, great. That's so great. All right, I have a short story and then a question for you, Art. All right, on Friday evening, I was riding a bicycle and had a bike with coaster brakes. And so you need to chase me on to brake. So I was riding with a group of about 100 people, and we were going down a hill, and my brakes went out while I was going down a rather steep hill. And I started careening, and I had to go into oncoming traffic to avoid all the bikes ahead of me. And I was maybe 6 inches away from getting decapitated by a side view mirror. And the rest of the night, it was the strangest sort of spiritual experience I think I've ever had in my life. It felt like I should be dead. Like I was it was just a very strange spiritual experience.
Have you considered the possibility that you were killed?
That what?
That you were killed?
Yes, I did, right afterwards, actually.
Oh, that was out of the blue. I didn't realize I'd get a yes. But, I wonder if people die in an accident of that kind, whether sometimes they don't realize it for, I don't know, perhaps several days.
That's what it felt like. It felt like maybe I was on my way to the hospital or I was in a coma or something, and it was a dream that I had actually lived because it was so close. I mean, I was going 25 down that hill. It was incredible. I have never felt anything like that in my life.
If you did, this is definitely one of the most interactive EVPs we've had to date, so we'll save it. Anyway, I'm glad you didn't get decapitated by somebody's rear view mirror. Yeah, close calls. I wonder about that. I really do wonder about that. There are times, many stories I've had, people that, for example, blow a stop sign at an intersection and virtually go through a vehicle which is blasting through a side street. I mean, they actually have a collision, but they don't. They move right through it. Kind of like it wasn't really their time yet. And then they get over on the other side of the intersection, pull over, and just sort of contemplate what just happened. First time caller line, you are on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
How are you today?
Very well indeed. Where are you, sir?
Calling you from Phoenix, Arizona. Art, I want to say, first of all, on behalf of many Americans, let me thank you for what you do on Art. Your medium actually, it just reaches out to so many people. It has for me for years and years and years.
It is a very different kind of program, and I hope it survives me. I hope it survives for a very long time because there's simply nothing like it.
Well, I tell you what, I've been listening to you for years, man. I'm a truck driver, and your program has inspired me, and I'll continue to listen on. I want to tell you a story. Years ago, when I lived in El Paso, Texas, I had a really strange experience, and I'll tell you this one will give you the DVT. I lived in an apartment complex, and one night I was coming home from work, and I heard the strangest sound. All of a sudden, things just got really, really quiet. and I heard this tapping, and it really frightened me very, very badly. And I wondered what it was. This was like in the year 1985 or something like that. That was about the time that the Alamogordo air base in that area there. And I remember that hearing stories about, UFOs and that kind of thing in that area. And it sort of scared me,
A tapping? What do you mean? Just tapping?
Well, it was all of a sudden, it just seemed like it got really, really quiet. You just really couldn't hear the sound of night at all.
Right.
And you know how night sounds. It was certain sounds to the nighttime. It was like really in the wee hours of the morning, about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was really, really strange. All of a sudden, it was just a tapping in the ground, and it
Oh, in the ground.
Yeah, it sounded like it was tapping in the ground. And I kind of got like really frightened about it, and I thought, wow, what is this?
Well, I'm with you. Ground sounds are really weird. This area, as well as in New Mexico, we've actually had it here. I had a friend across town. I've told this story previously. A very good friend across town, and we had this humming sound, not a tap, but a hum, kind of like the Taos hum going on. And my friend had built a porch, and in doing so, he had sunk a couple of very large, 2x6s or whatever they are, way into the ground. And it was so bad at night, it disrupted the house and his sleep so badly at night that he actually had to tear the porch down. So I have no idea what we're doing underground in this area or what might be going on in New Mexico, but there's something under our feet moving. It's doing something. I can imagine that our government has all kinds of projects that burrow into the ground at various depths and perhaps parallel at some point. And if they're going under you, you're definitely going to feel it. Now, what they're doing down there and why they're doing it, I have not the slightest. West of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I was calling to tell you about a story.
Okay, turn your radio off, please.
Okay.
Always number one.
Well, basically, I had a dream a while back ago about me kind of leaving my body and kind of going down into the earth.
It might not have been a dream. You might have left your body. You know about out of body, right?
Yeah, I sure do. But the funny thing about it was that kind of realized that the earth was a big sentient being. To the fact that the core is like a molten, core of metal.
Mm-hmm.
And with the huge pressure of it spinning in the solar system, it has like its own intelligence. It's like a very high level intelligence.
I don't think that's an outrageous theory at all. The American natives, as you know, believe that the Earth is a living thing. And it does stand to reason that something of this mass may have a kind of intelligence that we don't know about. Or maybe it's not an intelligence. Maybe it's what we call Mother Nature. And as I've said many times, Mother Nature doesn't get mad or angry. She simply gets even. So when something gets out of kilter on Earth, the forces of nature tend to take a corrective action. Now, there's no anger or emotion involved in that, as there would be with a living human being. There's simply a corrective balance that's sought. Now, that can have quite devastating results. Wildcard Line, you're on the air, huh?
Art,
Yes.
I can't believe it.
I try to believe it. You are on the air.
You are my hero. I'm a first-time caller, and I used to listen to you when I threw newspapers about 15 years ago. And I'm very nervous, but
Well, calm down, take a deep breath, and try and get it up.
I shall. I have sent you several emails, and I understand you probably get more emails than I could ever imagine. But I had an epiphany on March 25th. After a long drive home from Arizona, we went out there for spring break with some friends, and a big part of the epiphany was driving through the Indian nations there, and finally seeing it for the
sad reality that it is, and it just led me, and other things occurred during our spring break, which led me to my epiphany. But it was funny because at the very end of the trip, we were listening to you, and I thought you'd gone off the air. I'm not throwing papers anymore, and I had listened for maybe 4 or 5 years, and I know everything that's happened to you, and I'm sure sorry about all that. And I don't intend to go there, but it was ironic because my children were listening to it, and it was the night you were talking about the dream camp. My daughter is 17, going to college next year, and she said, "Can I go to dream camp, Dad?" And it was just really cute. I started talking to her about the children of the light, because I always believe that both of my children are very much children of the light. They always have been. They're really, really special children. And not only that, but we're surrounded by special people. We live here in, we live in the mountains in Colorado. I don't want to be too specific, but I might as well. We live in Bailey, where the incident occurred in September. And my daughter was actually friends with Emily, and even better friends with her brother Casey. And I don't know that I should have even went there. But at any rate, I have a vision to change the world, Art, by teaching the children the ways of the Indians to begin with, and taking life backwards into a simpler time where there was no gray area. Everyone knew their role and their purpose, and I'm just so excited about it. What I did was I had a powwow on Easter, and I desperately tried to contact you before I did it, but it was very successful. And in spite of bad weather and not enough timing or time to plan on my part, but at any rate, I had 21 children of the light there, and give me one second here. I'm sorry, I had to remove my headphones. And are you with me still?
I'm listening.
Okay, and we did a really neat 45-minute powwow where we just talked about real simple values. I've been inspired by God, and I really believe I'm a vehicle of God, and He's given me a very simple philosophy to teach children, and real simply, it starts with 1 O, and then it goes to 2. The 1 O is 1, God, and 2 E's, which is everything and everyone, and then 8 S's, somehow, sometime, something, somewhere, some more, summer, and I'm really all over the place right now.
All right, I'll tell you what, hold it right there. I'm going to agree with you that our children are our future, and that if we don't eventually go back to some of the original values that we've, I don't know, they've just sort of worn away, haven't they? They haven't died a quick death, they've just sort of worn away. We did a whole show on this not very long ago on what's wrong with our country, what's wrong with the world right now. And I remain convinced that this wonderful technological world that we live in now has succeeded in isolating people to the point where they're not interacting with each other any longer. They're interacting at an arm's length or more. You can now go onto the internet and write something about somebody without taking any responsibility for what you write on a little handle instead of your name. Not take any responsibility. Communicate across large distances, but not face to face. So, I don't know, the world has changed in a lot of somewhat negative ways. And either we move a little bit in the opposite direction, or I think we face a very uncertain future, and certainly the only way it's going to change is going to be with our children. So he's right about that as well. Wildcard Line, you're on the air.
Hello, Art. This is Joe from LA. It's a pleasure to speak to you again. I just want to pile on another B story to the mounting story.
Sure.
In July of 2006, myself and some friends were walking along Zuma Beach in Malibu. For those of your listeners that don't know, it's arguably the most famous beach in Malibu. And
what is all that?
Excuse me?
What is all that?
I have a radio. Hold on.
Okay. Turn it down for just the time you're on here.
And I apologize for that, Art. Anyway, I'm highly allergic to bees. I was walking along Zuma Beach, and I walked the whole distance of this beach, and I see all of these bees just washing out of the water. All of them on their backs, all of the legs up in the air, flailing. And I'm being conscious of the bees since I'm allergic, and I'll be damned if I wasn't all the way at the end, and I stuck dead on one of the bees on my right big toe. And for a moment, I just started cussing, and because I knew what the impending reaction was going to be. And nothing happened. The bee was very much alive when it stung me, and absolutely nothing happened, Art. And we heard nothing about it on the news here in LA. Nothing was reported locally. Nothing was put in the beach reports. Nothing. I mean, thousands and thousands of bees washing out of the ocean just in a surf. So anyway, nothing, no questions really. I just want to put that out there, and I'll listen to you on the radio.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. Well, I have no idea what to say about this whole bee matter, except I suspect Einstein was correct, and they're going to find an answer pretty soon. I don't think that I really don't think that I've ever seen a mystery of this magnitude drag on this long. We don't really have the answers yet. Many think they might have this answer or that answer, but we still don't know, do we? And one would think with all the little bee autopsies that are going on and all of the intense science being trained on this problem, that we would have some sort of answer by now, but we don't. And I guess we better find out pretty quickly or we're in deep doo-doo. Well, Caroline, you're on the air. Hi.
Art, what an honor it is to speak with you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm calling to you from the great Sterling State of Missouri. It was an honor to have George Norrie here for several weeks. And I wanted to tell you a story. When I was a child, hearing the story about these UFOs over in Britain, reminded me of something that I saw when I was a child. My brother is a couple years younger than I, and his best friend were all together and happened to be sitting on his front porch. All at the same time, we decided to look up in the air, and we see three lights. And we're like, okay, well, maybe this is an airplane or something of that nature. But they were flying in the form of a triangle. Well, as soon as they got over us, they came into a straight line, and two of them on the end switched positions. Then they formed a triangle back and just off across the horizon. Have you ever heard of anything like that? Any type of formation switching with UFOs?
Yes, of course I have. And the guest we have coming on in this next hour is going to talk exactly about that sort of thing. Of course I've heard of it. We've had, my God, millions of reports of triangles, of things that have been in formation, shifted formation, morphed, done everything you can imagine. Millions of reports of UFOs, and we still can't nail it down.
Yeah, and then once we finally saw them, all three of us looked at each other kind of like, did you see that? And just to make sure that nobody was messing with the others. And to this day, we can all still recall that night. But it's been great over talking to you, sir, and I'll continue on with that.
All right, thank you very, very much for the call. You know, the fact that we found this planet 20 and a half light years away from Earth, that has Earth-like temperatures, that much they can definitely confirm. They can determine by the distance from the sun and all the rest of it what the temperatures on this Earth-like planet with atmosphere would be. And it's got billions of years of potential evolution ahead of us. Now, you've seen what we've done in the last 100 years, haven't you? What do you suppose we're going to do in the next billion years, assuming we survive? So, if there are Earth-like planets, it's probable there's life. If there's life that's been around longer than we have, it's very probable that life has figured out a way to get here. It's also very probable, in my opinion, that we're being, at the very least, observed. And they may not like what they see. From the high desert in the great American Southwest, I'm Art Bell. It is a beautiful, balmy night in the desert, nigh on to 6 minutes after 11 o'clock at night. Currently 79.2 degrees outside, very dry, just absolutely beautiful. Coming up, Ryan Wood. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics and computer science from California Polytechnic State University. He has worked for Intel, Digital Equipment, Toshiba, and 2 Silicon Valley startups. He has developed and executed advertising and promotion campaigns, direct mail programs, and telemarketing in both consumer businesses and industrial products. He currently manages the content of a website, which is www.majesticdocuments.com. And he has completed a documentary entitled The Secret. Ryan has also published 2 books and a CD-ROM dealing with the Majestic documents and their authenticity. As a UFO investigator with MUFON, he has chosen to specialize in the strategic problems of ufology, such as unquestionable proof and improved media acceptance. So coming up in a moment, Ryan Wood. Ryan Wood, welcome back to Coast AM.
Well, thank you, Art. It's great to be back and good to hear your voice again.
Good to have you. All right. How in the world, Ryan, did you get involved with ufology in the very first place?
Well, I can blame it on my father or compliment him for it. He started studying UFOs when he was a research director at McDonnell Douglas, and as a 10-year-old, I was exposed a little bit to it, and then when I was 15, Stan Friedman came to dinner, and I got a lot more exposure. And since that time, we've been working for the past 15 years or so on UFO documents primarily and crashes. And so that's been a fun, relationship with my father about UFOs.
Okay, well, we're going to kind of divide this between UFO documents and crashes. Let's begin with the documents. You know, the Majestic documents have been around a long time, and I wonder now, I've always wondered if they were legit or if some are legit and some are not. How do you sift through that?
Well, the process of authenticating a document can be very complex. It's sort of document unique. But you look at the basic things of where did you get it. And most of that is pretty muddy, where you're getting photocopies. But in some cases, we have original documents where you can do forensic tests just the way the FBI would do. And that's very powerful and useful. And then you start looking at the content, what does it say, and is the order of things correct? And are there any weird anachronisms or problems?
Do you actually have any original copies of any of the Majestic documents?
Well, yeah, there's the what's called the Bowen manuscript, which is it was 350-page document of which the Air Force chapter is stamped top secret magic, and that's all original onion skin documents that are, as far as we can tell, they're old and authentic. And what's fascinating about those, besides being an interesting history that was created by Vernon Bowen back in the 55, 56 time frame, it was sort of a 10-year look at UFOs, and he sent it to the Air Force about that time for review, and the Air Force kept it, said, no, don't publish it. And then anonymously was mailed to Tim Cooper's mailbox in like 2000 or 1999 and returned in essence. And that's all original.
Okay, a lot of the audience will not be familiar with the Majestic documents. Can you capsulize for us essentially what information or the high points of the information in those documents?
Yeah, well, the Majestic documents have come from 7 different sources from 1984 onward, comprising some 3,500 pages of documents that all talk about extraterrestrial entities, technology recovery, craft analysis from Roswell. Some of them are very juicy, so to speak, and wow, and arresting, and some of them are very pedestrian and bureaucratic, where one person's writing a memo to another person about, what do we do with this organization's ET parts, sort of. So that's the quick nutshell of it. The manual, the Special Operations Manual, is one of the ones that we've authenticated the most thoroughly, and it is also one of the most compelling and gripping, just from the title, Extraterrestrial Entities, Technology Recovery and Disposal. And it's a 32-page how-to manual of how to pick up the bodies, how to keep the public in the dark, how to manage a crash retrieval circa April 1954.
Wow. You believe these to be authentic?
This particular manual, I would go to 99.9%. My dad would probably say 96.7% or something. We've studied it every which way to Sunday, from every word to every nuance, type, to other documents inside the archive. And every place we look, we have not found showstoppers or real problems. And we've verified all sorts of subtleties of the hot lead printing press, interviewed people that were in the government printing office that looked at this. The one guy who wrote the style manual for the Special Operations Manual flipped through the originals and said, wow, I think this is real. Well, the Z's are raised off the line, which is an artifact of the monotype modern hot lead printing press that was in use back in the 50s. And it's just some really obscure subtleties that say, yeah, I think this is totally...
All right, even if something can be authenticated as having been produced or copied in the 50s, doesn't make it authentic. So what else do you look for? I mean, you look for...
Well, yeah, I mean, can you unequivocally say that none of this is faked? I mean, could the CIA, KGB, et cetera, fake this stuff? And the answer is, yeah, they could. They have to spend a lot of time, money, and effort, and sophistication. But then you realize, well, why do this program of fakery for, close to 30 years, 32 or 3 years, with so many mixed purposes and messages, all to sort of say to the Soviets or the Red Chinese, don't mess with us, we got ET technology, or we'll fry your tail. It seems, when I interview experts in psychological warfare, graduates of the JFK Special Warfare Center down by Fort Bragg, who spent their whole life in military psyops, and they look at this stuff and say, wow, this is like really rotten stuff for psychological warfare. There's so many different messages.
Actually, though, you did just lay down a fairly decent motive. If the Soviets actually thought we had extraterrestrial technology, something really far beyond any... I mean, look what happened when they thought we were deploying Star Wars. Scared the hell out of them. Virtually caused them to throw up their hands. So
yeah, and I agree. That is a very good point, Art, and it definitely could be a motive. But the question in my mind is, how would they do it? Would they bother to create a ruckus in the public arena rather than simply slip it to one of their agents to, get it?
They actually might create a public ruckus. Why not? In fact, for example, Roswell. why not create a Roswell, get it going, and then produce some secret documents, leak them somehow to the Soviet Union, and just scare the you-know-what out?
Yeah, it's possible. It just seems like a lot of extra work and risk that you don't know can all come unraveled. Rather than targeting one or two of our agents or double agents to leak intelligence information into those agencies or into those governments.
Well, I know Stanton believes them to be authentic.
Yeah, and I think most reasonable people that look at it and start to see the breadth and sophistication and complexity start to say, it's got to be genuine. Maybe not every single one, but there's so much smoke. There's got to be fire here.
How much time have you actually spent on all of this in trying to authenticate the documents, going over them? I mean, it's been years, right?
Right. Well, I think we started off in '96. I would say that between my father and I, we probably have one full-time man-year at it. Yeah, and so there's a lot of, and then there's other people that help too, that contribute and look at different sections. And there's still a lot more to go.
You do this in addition to some sort of full-time job. What do you do for a living, Ryan?
Well, I'm in the energy business and actually sell energy conservation equipment for I sell to two corporate energy managers and large big box retail. So it's mostly motors and controls and some exotic lighting and so forth. But it's all very normal energy business and sales.
Okay. All right. Can you tell us where any hardware might now be? Where we're keeping it? For a long time, we thought there was something, and I think there certainly was, being kept in Area 51. We don't know where it is now. And for that matter, bodies or biological entities of some sort. What do you know?
Well, I mean, the documents point to the fact that the Area 51 S4 area, the Wright-Patterson Blue Lab, those were the areas where they specified specifically to take parts and so forth. Beyond that, all I have is what your listening audience has and rumor and speculation. But I think that something that's not talked about much and is very much a hotbed of UFO activity is the White Sands Proving Ground and the area in the upper corner of White Sands Proving Ground's upper northwest corner, what's called Area 29. And this area, which was called Area 29 because one of the leaked photographs that came to us, there was a big black X in this corner of White Sands, and the person who leaked it wrote Area 29. And when I started looking at Area 29 and going through all the roads, using Google Earth and trying to look at the various things that are happening, doing some remote viewing targets in that area, I discovered all sorts of fascinating things. One day I was just elated because I found a convoy of 10 or 15 semi-tractor trailers in a 1998 aerial photograph going into the side of the mountain.
Really?
Yes. And they're right in Area 29. And so we know that everything really important is underground.
Yeah, we were just talking about underground a little earlier. As you know, there have been all kinds of hums heard in New Mexico, and for that matter, in the area in which I live here in Nevada. We really have felt these things going on underground. So the government or somebody, since I can't really pin it down to the government for sure, just a strong suspicion, is doing something underground. They're boring, they're doing something. And you really have a photograph of a convoy going into a mountain.
Oh, yeah. I actually, during one of the breaks, I'll try to email it to you.
Okay.
And see if we can, get it posted so people can look at it or something. But that's one particularly fascinating area. There's two interlocking pentagon shapes of roads. These are of roads. Deliberate pentagon shapes in this corner of Area 29 on white sands. Why? I don't know.
Is this something that people can go to Google Earth themselves now? And
Sure.
It is.
Yeah, give it a whirl. I don't. Hey, you want to look at the very much near the Trinity First site, and 20 miles southeast of Socorro, or 5 miles west of Oscuro Peak. But up in that.
Do you actually have any latitude and longitude figures for people to make it easier?
Yeah, I can probably dig those up here. Let me try to hunt those down and I'll give it to you.
Yeah, all right. Very good. One important question that you said you can answer is why, and I'm very curious about this, why saucers or extraterrestrial craft crash at all? One would imagine with that kind of technology, something as simple as a lightning bolt or anything that we would throw at them would not cause any harm at all.
Yeah, that's the common thinking is that, how can they travel across the universe and screw up so badly as to crash here? And why would a little lightning bolt or, a little artillery shell bother them? The answers are, it seems like they do bother them. They bothered the artillery shells during the Battle of LA, where a couple of UFOs crashed, one in the ocean, one in the San Bernardino Mountains. From one of the documents, shows that the artillery shell did cause things to crash. The other object or idea really is that these are simply probes from another planet, galaxy, civilization, and they may not have the weapons that you would normally associate with one of our jet fighters. One of the little UAVs that fly around Iraq all the time is subject to a bullet very easily. And they may have the same thing. It's a question of economics. Why send your most expensive stuff to a little planet like Earth to just gather some data that they want? So the idea of remote piloted vehicles, the idea of we shoot them down and standing orders to do that. The idea of radar or interfering with the navigation or communication system somehow was foreign and weird. And I think that's potentially a very real possibility. You can't eliminate the idea of deliberate seeding of the planet.
I know you've studied a number of alleged crashes. Are you pretty well personally convinced that these really were crashes of craft from elsewhere?
Well, my book, Magic Eyes Only, and the associated website, magiceyesonly.com, reviews 74 UFO crashes from around the world from 97 to present. And I rate each one basically from a 50-50 sort of chance that it could be a real crash vehicle like you described. And something...
all it takes is one real one, Ryan. Has there been one real one? Hold your answer. We'll be right back. I don't for 1 second think that there is nothing going on. I've seen with my own eyes. I've had 2 really incredible sightings, and I'm not alone. There are millions and millions of you who have seen these things. So there really is something in our skies. There's something in our skies that is not conventional aircraft. There's no question about it. What I've seen in both cases didn't resemble any sort of conventional anything that we've got, or even have come close to it, or has even been leaked, for example. Nothing. So something really is going on. And if there's been so much as one crash, which we've recovered hardware, and or biological entities, that's all it takes. It doesn't take 74 crashes. It only takes one real one. Ryan, we're back in a moment. Lori, Ryan's new book, Magic Eyes Only, reviews 74 UFO crashes and subsequent retrievals. Now, since that book, there have apparently been 10 more, and we'll try and cover what we can. But what I said, Ryan, was we only need one that's absolutely the real McCoy.
That's right.
And I wonder, of those 74, and I know you said you rated them, were there any that you rated beyond question?
Well, no, nothing's really beyond question. I mean, the ones that have the highest rating are the ones your audience is most familiar with. Kecksburg, Roswell, Shag Harbor, Aurora, Texas. Those are the, I think I made this one more, but there's 5 that are in the 80 to 100% zone. And I'm by no means the expert in all those cases. There are many other experts, and I just sort of contacted them and compiled their most credible sort of evidence in 5 to 10 pages. Some of the entries are very suggestive and interesting. They come directly from the National Archives. In one case down in Bolivia, in 76, we have declassified documents that are talking about a 4-meter metallic ovoid shape that crashed, and we even interviewed some of the military guys that were on the scene that packed it up and sent it back to Wright-Patterson. Yeah.
Right. Now, I would be interested, for example, in some of those interviews, some of what was said in those interviews.
Yeah, well, they, the challenge with that is that these are military security guys, and transportation specialists. They come in, they see it, and say, well, okay, it's smooth, I don't see any windows, portals, anything. 4 or 5 people can lift it up and put it on a truck. Their job is to pick up space junk for, on special task assignments through Project Moonta. And so they did this for 5 years, and their comment was, once a year, a couple times a year, we get a call, we go out, and it's not space junk, it's ET stuff. And they pack it up and ship it back.
Okay, and this stuff is currently, for the most part, going to Wright-Pat?
At the time of this one in 76, went to Wright-Patterson. This was the only case. I'm working on another whole book on Project Moonta and Operation Blue Fly. And that, the Moondust efforts to recover debris, I think, is the key opening in the government's armor, where we have hundreds of declassified pages no speculation and talk about suspicious craft and suspicious artifacts that could be ET material. They may not be, but the way that it's handled, it's pretty darn interesting. But that particular case in 76 in Bolivia is in my book, Magic Eyes Only, which you can get through your website, get it on Amazon, and it's a powerful case.
Okay. What about one close to home here? Something near Devil's Hole, Nevada, right?
Yeah, this is one of the new 10 or so that I'm working on. The story here, right on the border of California, Nevada, near Devil's Hole, which is where the Death Valley National Monument is. It's just up the road from us there.
That's right.
What caught my attention on this was Rich Dolan, in his book, UFOs in the National Security State, had a short little mention of an article of a couple of prospectors that were mining, and the UFO whizzed over their head and crashed. A couple of little beams popped out and ran around. And I thought that was interesting, and so then I looked up the newspaper article that referenced it. And then I did some more back digging. I went 3 or 4 days before that in other newspapers and found this sort of Genesis newspaper article before the disinformation guys got a hold of it, changed the names of the miners, changed the story, changed the location. And that was one that I've been working on and presented at the last crash retrieval conference, which is was last November in Las Vegas. But the story is, in essence, that a couple of miners were mining, and over their head comes this silver 24-foot diameter disc. This is in the middle of August, out in the desert, and crashes in front of them. 2 little ETs pop out in sort of funny-looking headdress. They call them leather flying dogs. A 1948 newspaper article. And they chase them for a little bit, but it gets so hot, they don't chase them very far.
Yeah, it's very hot in August here.
It is very hot in August. And the guy picks up a couple pieces of metal, takes it back to the Los Angeles Herald, which was the evening paper in LA, shows the reporter the material. The reporter shows his editor, I think, writes a small article about it, and then tries to go back out to the desert to find the whole crash again, but can't. And I think it's because the military picked it up and took it away. And I've used several remote viewers and all the various resources I can muster, and I believe I've firmly identified the spot that's occurred out in the desert. But the critical thing is that you have to pull up parts out of the ground. We believe there are parts that have been scattered around, most have been picked up. But
Are you at liberty to tell us exactly where, or is that something you keep to yourself?
that's something I keep to myself. I mean, it's approximately near Devil's Hole, you know. If you go in probably a 2-mile circle from Devil's Hole, but you're on the Nevada side, it's there. But when you
narrows it down, right?
Yeah, it narrows it down. But looking for things in the desert was humbling. I've made 3 trips to that area, and I'm going back with the magnetometer crew at the next final step to hopefully get parts out of the ground. But without parts, you have just an interesting story. You know, we've got newspaper articles. I think I've confirmed it. I've got physical tracing going on. I've got the mining sites identified. It's mostly there, but I wouldn't rate it past 50-50 sort of thing right now. But if I had some parts that were weird, then it would pop up to 80%.
Yeah, it's not, even if you get parts, Ryan, it's not a slam dunk. In other words, you take them to a lab somewhere, as you well know, or probably know, I have parts that were sent to me, and they were completely anomalous. We had them tested in Washington. But what you end up with at the end of the day is anomalous parts that are not on Earth. That does not, unfortunately, identify them any further than that. That's where it stops. You need more. You need a part of a craft. You need some sort of biological entity. You need, I don't know what you need to finally nail this down.
Well, I think you need something that shows that it's, you need hieroglyphics or writing. You need an economic advantage ultimately. I mean, with the parts that you have, the layers in the magnesium stuff,
very good.
That if somebody could make that and there was a real economic advantage for semiconductors or something like that, and a patent and profit being generated, then there's a real economic engine to fund the research and to fund further investigation.
Some of the best labs in the country tried, and they can't make it.
I know. And what better validation that it is truly special?
Well, that's the trouble. You do need better validation. We studied it. There's nothing like it on Earth. In fact, parts of it are not from Earth, clearly. And it can't be duplicated. But still, that's where it ends, Ryan.
Yeah, no, it's got to be compelling. And to make it compelling, it's got to be part of a craft, it's got to have hieroglyphics on it, it's got to be visually exciting for the media too, because having a bunch of PhD metallurgists debate something is about as exciting as watching paint dry.
That's right.
And so the media wants a lot of titillating sensationalism, not your show by any means, but the mainstream people do. And it's got to be visual. That's the other thing.
Now, what about biological entities? Now, you mentioned a couple scurried away from this crash, and we've had obviously reports of other biological entities, living or dead. How much do we know? Does our government still have bodies alive or dead?
Well, I don't have any data other than my research. My research says that they have bodies, certainly dead, that they would never destroy them or give them away or do anything like that. They would keep them. And so my opinion is that I'm extremely confident that they still have biological entities deceased. And the question, and even the majestic doctrines talk about the potential for biological warfare and the power of that weapon if you were able to use alien viruses or alien tissues to create weapons grade.
Why, Ryan, in your opinion, if our government really is aware of all this, if they have recovered craft and or bodies, why are they keeping all of this secret?
Well, that's the question that comes up a lot. And the big thing is that it's a giant unknown. I mean, if you think 9/11 was traumatic for the trajectory of our planet 5 years ago with the war on terror and where we're at now, that telling the alien secret and ultimately exposing the long history of secrecy and the exploitation of the technology and so forth. It's a giant unknown. You don't know where it's going to go. The impact is complex. It may be very positive. It may be very negative. It may be a mix of both. But it's very unmanageable. And so for the people that are in the control of secrets, that the thought of just unleashing this giant monkey into the global society is very, very unpalatable.
No, it may be just that one lie has, grown and grown and grown over the years. If this is something that we've been aware of, say, since 1940, whatever.
Right.
It's been lie upon lie upon lie upon lie, and I guess at some point, government cannot afford the additional loss of, already, yeah, that's right. Already people in this country don't find their government all that credible, and this would perhaps be the last plug out of the ship that sinks it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's important to realize that it's not your congressman who knows, and it may not even be the director of Central Intelligence Agency, and it may be inside departmentalized programs that are so deeply obscured and sensitive that it's hard to really pin down somebody that is responsible. I mean, really, is it a secret government that's doing this? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were aware of it and doing their best to stay involved, because it's the energy technology alone and the anti-gravity technology, if they reversed it, engineered it, is extremely powerful for whoever controls it. From a military point of view, and as recently former Canadian Defense Minister Hellier pointed out, this could be the solution to global warming and all sorts of other challenges our planet faces.
That is certainly correct. I interviewed Colonel Corso many times, fortunately, before he passed, and I believed him. Now, it was his intention that we have slowly integrated alien technology into our industry. Do you think that is true? And if so, what kind of technology do you think we can attribute to it? Well, elsewhere.
Yeah, right. I think the short answer is yes, we have. It's another whole book that I've been putting off, but I've been collecting information, tentatively titled Prologue Progress. But the one that comes to mind that's mentioned in the Majestic document is the description of fiber optics in 1947, where it was patented until 1954. And this is not to demean the importance and value of all the hardworking engineers and scientists that further developed fiber optics to bring it to the point it is today, where the laser or the integrated circuit or night vision goggles or the host of other technologies that are suspect. There's loads of hard work that went into making those all happen from our terrestrial point of view, but the seed, the kernel, the starting point, the aha moment has its origin in viewing the future and seeing the alien artifact in it. And that's all it takes, really, sometimes, to know something's possible.
That's right. Oh, no, that's absolutely correct. It is the idea. From there, away you go.
That's right. And so I think there are a lot of reverse engineered technologies that are in the marketplace today, and they're important.
All right, and so is the break coming up. Ryan Wood, hold tight. Ryan Wood has investigated 74 plus 10 crash sites. We'll touch on a number of them as this program proceeds. From the high desert, I'm Art Bell. My guest is Ryan Wood. He has written a book called Magic Eyes Only. In it, he reviews 74 UFO crashes and subsequent military retrievals. So we're going to talk a little bit about retrievals. There must be a very specific order of things that are done when our government goes to a crash site, and I would imagine Ryan knows what those are. In a moment, we'll ask. Ryan, welcome back. Let's settle a couple of things. You've got some White Sands coordinates for us?
Yeah. And so, did you want me to just read them to you?
Indeed.
Okay. Latitude 33.7338489.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Wait a minute. Latitude 33.73389.
8489.
Got it.
And then longitude minus 106.20783.
Okay, let me repeat those. Latitude 33.7338489. Longitude minus 106.20783.
Yeah, let's do the latitude one more time. 33.7338489.
Got it.
Okay.
All right, that'll let people take a look. Now, with regard to the email you sent me of the convoy going into the mountain, what is the title of the email? I get a lot of... did you send it to mine? Or?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, what's the title of the email?
The title of the email is Area 29 Trucks Going into a Hillside.
Okay, I may not have that yet, so let me keep trying. All right, very good. Now, with regard to military protocol for retrievals, when there is a crash, Ryan, what happens in what order? How do they handle it?
Well, generally, I think they gather as much intelligence as they can about the particular incident, and then quickly send a team there to secure the area and get everybody as far away from it as possible if there's any public around or any military around. The world is a gigantic place, and there's people are only in the cities. And most of the crashes seem to occur in remote areas.
They do, but that makes sense. There are more remote areas in the world than there are urban areas. Ryan, do you know offhand if the U.S. responds to foreign crashes as well as domestic crashes, or do individual governments respond?
Well, the Moon Dust declassified documents clearly showed that they had an international presence and they would respond internationally to events. They also, the declassified correspondence shows that there's coordination sometimes. That in 1996 in Somalia, the president of Somalia asked the State Department to help me with this stuff. And they sent in a team. So I think it's done on a case-by-case basis. If the U.S. guys think they can get away with going in there, grabbing and getting out, they're going to do it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would make it easier to keep a secret. I mean, if individual nations were responding, then one might imagine that this secret just simply could be kept. But if there's some sort of international coordination in terms of response, even if it's somewhat delayed, then you can imagine secrecy might be kept.
Well, the other thing is that we're forgetting the power of the almighty dollar and the real problem that you have. Okay, so an ET crash occurs in, let's say, Peru, and the Peruvian government does not have a battery of 100 PhD in exotic materials or navigation, etc. Only the United States does. And they call the State Department, send them the pictures, and say, hey, we got an ET crash. You guys want it? Wire me $3 billion to my account, and I'll ship it to you. Otherwise, we're going to keep it and work on it ourselves. And I would not be surprised if there's negotiations like that occur. for just, materials. Because they're stuck, a small country without a deep, rich set of education and intellect and industry that can do nothing with it. And it's even questionable whether or not America or other industrialized countries can really do something with it. We can do probably a little more. But it's a big challenge for the people that got the gear.
All right, I just received, and I'll be damned if you're not right, I have received the pictures, the convoy entrance and the picture of the convoy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to forward this on right now to the two webmasters we have in hopes that they're still awake and can possibly get them up for everybody to see. So I appreciate your having sent this. And indeed, folks, just in case you don't get to see it, it does show a very long convoy indeed, going into what appears to be inside the hill. So,
and we've done some remote viewing targets on that underground complex, and it's very large. And this picture was taken in 1996. 10 years old. And it's just a fluke of luck that we get it where the trucks are actually going into the
that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything quite like this. So hopefully we'll get it on the website for everybody to see. Very good. All right. How much do we know about the ability of these craft to quite obviously and apparently defy gravity?
Well, they certainly seem to be divine. The data says that you see water coming up above the surface, slightly, maybe a foot off the surface when a UFO is hovering. So there's cases like that. We all know they disappear over the horizon in a couple of seconds, and then thousands of G's, and our science doesn't know how to deal with that. It only takes just a teeny bit of quote, anti-gravity or gravitational reduction to create a flywheel to just keep going and going and going and generate free energy.
All right, and that's what's on everybody's mind. God knows we need energy. So is there anything in any of these papers that gives us a hint how it's done, or on the technological end of it? Is there anything?
Well, yeah, there's one section in the White Hot report, which is the report that was done in September of 47 after 3 months sort of analyzing the Roswell wreckage, the Magic Eyes Only report that Twining's people put together. And so they talked about, point 18, the following elements were analyzed and found to exist in a small neutronic power plant that was found inside ULAT-1, unidentified lenticular aerodynamic technology, number 1. The first thing was UF6 in metallic form, that's the uranium hexafluoride, hydrogen fluoride gas, water and uranium tetrafluoride, powdered magnesium and potassium fluorate, metal similar to lead or a chocolate brown in color, so there's something they don't understand.
Right.
Uranium-235 in metallic form, a plastic-like material similar to Ne-102. Ne-102, when we first read that, we said, what the heck is Ne-102? It turns out it's a obscure historical reference to a neoprene type material that's perfectly accurate for 1947, but makes absolutely no sense to modern science. It was discontinued a few years later. Beryllium, pure aluminum, thorium isotope material, and plutonium powder. So they sort of list down those things. They had mass spectroscopy back then, and they should be able to figure out most of that. The question is, how does it work? They don't know.
Or they don't say.
Right. Well, that's just how secret the thing is. It is preliminary technical evaluation. So, yeah, I would think that there's a dozen PhDs that would have been writing follow-up reports and taking it to the next level, and we just don't have those documents.
One would also imagine, at least I imagine, that with the state of the world right now and how much trouble we're apparently in with our environment and the need for energy, obviously these kind of craft will be using some sort of technology that would get us out of trouble. And at some point, the need for that is going to eclipse whatever they've concocted as the need for keeping this so secret.
Well, I agree with you, and, there, if I was the